Welcome to another episode of Trial Site News. Senator Ron Johnson has sounded the alarm over vaccine injuries. That is going to be the subject of today's episode. And so from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin, continues to represent one of the few voices among elected officials in Washington who is publicly sounding the alarm over the complete state of denial in Washington over the potential harms of COVID vaccination. Senator Johnson is, of course, referencing numerous studies that have raised concerns that the vaccines or their boosters have weakened immune responses or failed to protect Americans from the viruses as advertised, while the CDC and the WHO, or the World Health Organization, has released data showing hundreds of safety signals that, although deemed rare, have been identified in adverse event reporting databases for two COVID-19 vaccines. Now, Senator Johnson, who is the ranking member of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, had recently raised concerns about vaccine injuries back in December of last year. He held an expert panel on December 7th, featuring medical experts and doctors specializing in COVID-19 vaccine research and treatment. The roundtable centered around what COVID-19 vaccines are, how they work, and how they could, quote, possibly cause injuries. The hearing included scientists and doctors studying the matter, emphasizing that part of the purpose of this meeting was to provide withheld information to the American public on COVID-19 vaccines and to prevent future harm. Senator Johnson is largely basing his concerns on a range of data, from engagement with vaccine injury groups, such as React-19, a nonprofit group offering financial, physical, and emotional support for those suffering from long-term COVID-19 vaccine adverse events globally. But he's also focused on the latest report from Science Immunology, which claims the third dose of the Pfizer vaccine may weaken the immune system against COVID-19. An interesting claim. Now, Senator Johnson maintains that he is not anti-vaccine, but continues to communicate with vaccine-injured individuals and groups focused on this matter, such as React-19. He has stated that he wants their stories told. The senator was quoted as saying that, "I believe their stories, and all these people want is to be heard, seen, and believed, so that they can get help, so that they can go receive therapy." Because without the acknowledgement that vaccine injuries are real, the medical establishment is just blowing them off. They won't even consider that as a cause of their ailments. It's really tragic. Now, none of these vaccine injuries are in dispute. Just that they are rare is the official line from the government. For example, the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, have acknowledged that there have been, quote, selected adverse event reports after COVID-19 vaccination. And of course, we have the WHO, which has also acknowledged rare side effects, like myocarditis, saying very rare cases of myocarditis and pericarditis have been observed following vaccination with the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. These cases occurred more often in younger men and after the second dose of the vaccine, typically within a few days after vaccination. Current evidence suggests a likely causal association between myocarditis and the mRNA vaccines, and the WHO goes on to say that vaccinated individuals should be instructed to seek immediate medical attention if they develop symptoms indicative of myocarditis or pericarditis, such as new onset and persisting chest pain, shortness of breath, or palpitations following vaccination. Now, Senator Johnson seems to believe that the government hasn't been honest about the COVID-19 vaccines. He has been quoted as saying that it is enormously frustrating because I think we could have prevented so much harm if our federal health agencies would have been honest and transparent. Now, we here at Trial Site News have continually reported on vaccine injuries and the Canadian Vaccine Injury Support Program, which has made payments to those who have been damaged after taking the COVID-19 vaccine. Other nations are also paying out as well. You could take Taiwan as an example here. This contrasts sharply with the American system, which frankly represents a scandal, which of course we covered recently in our final episode of last week. The episode, which if you haven't yet watched, illustrates just how absurd and outrageous the handling of the vaccine injured here in America truly is. See, The government waived all liability associated with the vaccine producers and health systems that may be found to be culpable in the future. Knowing this, they should have at least set up a decently run government compensation program, knowing that over 250 million people would be vaccinated within a short period of time. It had to have been expected that some side effects would occur that could lead to injuries. So what were these people thinking? Well, as Daniel O'Connor, founder of Trial Site News, put it, throw in mandates at the federal and local levels, take away any liability, and don't acknowledge any underfunded and understaffed government vaccine injury program for COVID-19 to help those injured, and you have a formula not only for another health crisis, but also for the erosion of trust in government vaccine programs. And that is precisely what has happened over the past couple of years. Vaccine hesitancy has exploded, with experts now crying over the lack of continued vaccination. There are articles running stories about how it is extremely frustrating for the public health community. And yet the government hasn't seen fit to take care of those who need it. As covered in our episode last week, the government completely underfunded their Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program, otherwise known as the CICP. This program is supposed to take care of those who might become vaccine injured. But they only have 8 full-time employees for this program. You heard me right, a paltry 8 employees. And they have over 7,500 vaccine injury claims in the backlog. And get this, the government has only processed 12 of those claims in 2 years. It's outrageous, and we expect that number of claims to grow exponentially in the near future. Now, naturally, of course, the very fact that Senator Johnson would convene a roundtable to try and address this deeply concerning issue brought up the usual suspects that want to complain and bloviate about this sort of issue, and especially for those that don't like the senator. For example, the New England Skeptical Society, otherwise known as NES, via their blog Science-Based Medicine, took a particular nasty swipe at Senator Johnson recent's roundtable, arguing that although the event was purportedly organized to help the vaccine injury, the occasion, quote, did little to actually help patients. In the hit piece, Dr. Hahn of the New England Skeptical Society included a fact checklist, systematically accusing the senator and a cohort of participating doctors and scientists, like Dr. Robert Malone, of lying, obfuscating, exaggerating, exploiting, or several other misdeeds, while pretty much categorizing all of the participants at the round table as anti-vaxxers. This despite the fact that at least some of the participants were quite vocal about being pro-vaccination. Now, interestingly, while Dr. Frank Hahn was harsh in his overall critique of the Senator Johnson COVID-19 vaccine injury workshop, he also just so happened to explicitly agree with the participants that the issue of COVID-19 vaccine injury must be taken up head-on. Interesting. Now, maybe this Dr. Hahn just doesn't like people trying to discuss the problem. He just wants it to be taken care of. I don't know. Anyway, Senator Johnson's pursuit to support the community of COVID-19 vaccine injured hasn't necessarily been popular among his peers in the Senate, as many of those individuals benefit from industry lobby money. The Wisconsin senator, though, understands that trust in vaccines will grow if the government stands accountable for injuries, while this continual mistreating of the vaccine injured will only further bury the public trust if nothing is done to correct the misdeeds of our government. The way our nation is currently treating individuals with claims of COVID-19 vaccine injury isn't a good look, not to mention it's morally bankrupt. And if nothing is done, you can kiss goodbye ever regaining the public trust in future vaccination programs. The bill for the actions of our government will most certainly come due at some point. Of that, you can be rest assured. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday, and for numerous written articles daily, 7 days a week at trialsitenews.com. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the program today, my friends. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.